see you again. Oh, I can't help myself. I've got to see you again.
Freedom Broadcasting Radio, Freedom Broadcasting Network. This is your host, Rudy Z. I'm on the line with TMOT. We're going to bring him up in just a moment. But for those of you who don't know, TMOT, the Minister of Truth, he hails out of Atlanta, Georgia, and he is doing something quite unique, something quite extraordinary. And we're going to be talking to him in just a moment about exactly what that is. And so for those of you who don't know, or for those of you who haven't seen the trailer that's currently available on YouTube, you can search that on YouTube by just going to the search box and typing in Ground Wars, or finding TMOT of Georgia. That's TMOT. OFGA, TMOT of Georgia, and certainly you'll find his channel and you can find the YouTube video there. But we're going to play the audio for you coming up in just a moment, and at the end of that trailer, that audio, we're going to bring TMOT on the line, and he's going to tell us all about the show. So keep it tuned in, keep it locked in to your Freedom Radio station, the Freedom Broadcasting Network.
This is about liberty. This is about freedom. It is about cleaning house from the corrupt politicians pandering to special interests. Now is the time. We know what needs to be done. It ain't about us. We're doing this for our country. We will stand and be heard. We will be silent no more. So get up off your ass, get those boots on the ground, and let's do this thing.
Absolutely outstanding. The Ground Wars coming up very, very soon. But don't let me tell you all about it. Let's bring TMOT on the line. TMOT, are you with us?
Yes, I am here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, TMOT. I'm doing just fine. And we're very excited to have you on the line. We're very excited for you to be joining us on the Freedom Broadcasting Network. For those of you who don't know, the Freedom Broadcasting Network is piloting a brand new show, the Freedom Broadcasting Radio Network. And yours truly is the first host, and this is our second broadcast on the lineup, and TMOT has been gracious enough to join us and tell us all about the show. So, TMOT, tell me, let's just get right to it. What is Ground Wars? What's it all about?
Ground Wars is something that I saw was going to be instrumental and a requirement if we're going to turn America around. It is important to the world at large because things that are taking place here in America are affecting the world in a global sense. We have economies failing. We have the Fed here in America just printing more and more money, making our dollar worthless. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. With the liberty movement here in America, Ron Paul, who has been standing firm for the last 34 years, has basically been a lone soldier, a John the Baptist type, crying in the wilderness and warning America about where it was headed, but nobody was listening. He made a bid for the office of the president in 2008, unsuccessful as it were, because of the structure of our two-party system, which basically makes it impossible. And of course, he is running now in the 2012 election. The problem is, even if Ron Paul were to win the nomination and go into the White House, he wouldn't be able to get too much done because of who we have sitting on both sides of the aisle in both our representatives and our senators. What Ground Wars is about is getting a liberty-minded president, somebody that he can work with. And I've been using this term since last October. We've got to send the bastards in Washington home, because it is not just the president that is doing this to the country. It is our representatives, our senators, and ultimately the blame rests with the American people, because we continue to send the same bastards to Washington time and time again. And it is now clear that both parties are hell-bent on decimating the middle class, the backbone of this country. Therefore, in order for us to be prepared to do what needs to be done to turn this country around, we need more than just a liberty-minded president. We need representatives and senators who are the same. So the purpose of Ground Wars ultimately is to give a platform to liberty-minded candidates so that they can speak, so that they can be engaged by the voting public. And I don't mean just focusing locally here in the Atlanta area where I live. I want to give a platform to liberty-minded candidates all over this land. I want everybody to be able to participate and learn what it is to vet a candidate, because what has been happening, our politicians have been doing the vetting for us. Our mainstream media has been presenting their picks, and the ones that would probably be better for the job, for the most part, are being ignored. Case in point, Ron Paul. So we want to turn that around. And there are things taking place here in this country because mainstream media is scared to death of what is taking place with the internet. We have legislation that is being proposed that would even limit the amount of free internet that people were able to gain, or charging them more money. So people are on the run. Some things are happening because folk are starting to wake up. So we're going to ride the wave of that momentum in Ground Wars. We're going to put some boots on the ground. We're going to educate some people, and we are going to put forth liberty-minded, honorable men and women to get up there on both sides of the aisle. My focus is not just one party, because as far as I'm concerned, both the Democratic Party and the GOP, they're working in the same circus. They just simply trade clowns. And my goal is to try and infiltrate both parties with liberty-minded candidates. So if the person is a Democrat or a Republican, if they stand for liberty, then it is in name only, and we need them in Washington, no matter which side of the aisle they're sitting on. Ground Wars, baby.
Right. So it's very interesting what you're saying. Essentially, what you're saying is, in order to affect the kind of change that you have in your mind, that the people need to start from the ground up. In other words, not really worry about who's in power now or who's in office now, but to begin to start at the ground level or the grassroots level, and to begin to remake the face of politics. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Exactly, because remaking the face puts us in a position to bring someone into prominence in the 2016 election. Again, if Ron Paul were to go to the White House, he is not a go-along, get-along politician, and he will be stopped at every turn. And the only way we would be able to help him would be when the midterm elections came. I would prefer that if Ron Paul did not get into the White House, that Obama were to remain. Why? Because we'd only have another 4 years of Obama. And I know that as when Newt Gingrich was in his prominence, we had a referendum against the Democratic Party, and there was a sweeping takeover by the GOP back then. Sadly, of course, most of those in the GOP adopted some of the same strategies and policies that the Democratic Party had, hence the situation that we're in today as of George Bush's presidency. So we need to affect change now during this period coming up to the 2016. And if Obama remains in office for the next 4 years, he will bring about that referendum, because the man is doing a terrible job. The reason I say I'd rather see Obama get in than Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney could potentially give us another 8 years, and there's basically no difference in Mitt Romney or Obama. So I am going to stay focused on this ground war, reshaping the face of both parties if possible. If not, then I'll just focus on the the GOP. But bottom line, I would like to be able to render party line politics mute. I would like to be able to say, hey, you have a choice on this side, liberty. You have a choice on the other side, liberty. Take your pick.
Now, I'm just thinking back in terms of history. Some of our listeners and viewers, for those who are watching the video portion of this broadcast, some of them may remember that MTV started some years ago an effort called the Get Out the Vote effort to combat what I guess was seen as complacency among the voting bloc, particularly the younger voting bloc. Now, I remember 4 years ago when Barack Obama was running for office, it seemed that the response, not just in America but globally, was all about this message of hope and change. Barack Obama ran on that message of hope and change, and getting rid of bipartisanship, and doing things differently, and having transparent government, and letting the people decide, and putting the people first. And so now here we are 4 years later, and you're talking about the same thing that they were talking about 4 years ago: new hope, new change. So what's the difference?
The difference is we put our hope and change in one man, or we put our faith in one man, that he would go and lead the effort. We abdicated our responsibility. The hope and change is within the people. One of the things that I have observed and spoke out against are people that have questioned the motives of Ron Paul, because they have made the campaign or the liberty movement about Ron Paul. Ron Paul is only a match. Everybody must be their own torch. We must all get involved. And I've been saying from the beginning in some of my speeches, many of you think that going out to vote is enough. Yeah, those movements to get people to get out and vote and do this and do that, they were all fine and dandy. But it requires more than just going to vote and then leaving it up to the politicians to do what we thought they were going to do, and that is the best thing for this country. That is where we failed. Washington, the very first president of the United States, said in his farewell speech, "Beware of the party system, for it will destroy you." And we have allowed that to take a hold in this country. So now we have to do more than just get out and vote. We have to participate in the process. I have been nominated for a slot on our executive committee in the GOP, not saying that I'm going to get it, but if I do, trust me, I will be working to affect change internally. I work, every person that I talk to, I keep my Ron Paul sign in my car, and every opportunity I get to try and educate people, I do it. It's going to take us being involved. And I tell you something, Rudy, if it comes down to it and I got to run for president myself, it might just be what I'll have to do. Doubt if I'll win, but hey, I'm prepared to do it if that's what it comes down to.
All right, folks, you've heard it here first on FBN. TMOT for President 2016. Okay, so I'm sure everybody's heard the saying, talking out of both sides of your mouth. And essentially that means, you say one thing and you do another. You're a hypocrite. So, TMOT, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but is it safe to say that you're looking at Barack Obama in particular, and if not a lot of politicians, as being hypocrites, as saying one thing and running on a certain platform or running on certain issues, but then once they get elected or they come into office, that they do something completely different? Is that what we're seeing? Is that sort of a basic part of the overall problem?
Absolutely. I voted for Bush in both his terms. His last 2 years in office, I didn't know who he was. I couldn't even recognize the Republican Party. They certainly weren't conservatives with our bailouts. And I'll just give you one example, GM. They said, well, the country will fall apart if we allow GM to shut. No, it wouldn't. GM filled a void in providing automobiles. If that demand was left vacant, other companies would have simply stepped in and taken up that. And guess what? They would have had to hire new employees. They would have had to take up those plants that may have shut down by GM or whatever. But we would have recovered. That is capitalism. That's the market doing what the market is supposed to do. However, we didn't do that. And again, I couldn't recognize George Bush. Obama got in office on hope and change and went right in and adopted the same policies that Bush was implementing, except Obama started using gasoline instead of kerosene. Gasoline burns a lot quicker. And I voted for Obama because, again, I had become disenchanted with the GOP. And after Obama was in office for a year and a half, and I saw some of the things that he was doing, extending portions of the Patriot Act, NDAA 2012, Obamacare, just to name a few, I realized I had made a mistake. And then I had my epiphany. Both parties are screwing America and the world.
Well, you hit on a really important part there, and I'll come back to that just in a moment. But I alluded earlier about the Get Out the Vote effort that started. It's probably been about 20 years now since the first Get Out the Vote effort started. I might be telling my age, but so we saw then in 2008 that there was a huge participation from the younger audience, and they voted in Barack Obama for the hope and change, and now we're seeing that. It appears as though he, like many politicians, are hypocrites. He talks, a good talk, but he doesn't really walk the walk. So my question to you, and how it relates to ground wars, let's say that there's a big voter turnout again in the 2012 season in America, and let's say that a lot of people vote for their candidate of choice, whoever that's going to be. What's to stop that person from doing the same thing, whether it be a Barack Obama or Mitt Romney or Ron Paul or anybody else? And in particular, what is ground wars? What are you doing? What is this program going to do to try to help avoid that situation where, the message sounds good and the script sounds good, but the reality is a different situation?
Okay. First off, we need to understand the president, being the figurehead, rarely writes legislation. That comes from other people. It is presented and debated by those that are in the House and the Senate. Our country did not get into the place that it is solely by the acts of the president. Now, I will point out the one difference in Obama as opposed to many other presidents in our history. Obama has gotten things done his way through executive order, as opposed to sending it through the House and the Senate. So that is one area where he is different than other presidents that we've had in the past. But the purpose of ground wars is to replace those that do not have the interest of America at the forefront of their service. In other words, we need people who are going to be bound by the tenets of the Constitution, much like a Christian is supposed to be bound by the tenets of the Bible. We need to put people up there that will stick to the Constitution, thereby forcing the president to have to act within accordance to constitutional principles. If we continue to leave the folk that we have there in Washington as they are, again, it doesn't matter if Mitt Romney or Obama is elected. Nothing will get done. The one saving grace, if Ron Paul were to get elected, at least he would have veto power, provided he's not overruled by a 2/3 majority, to roll the block. And Ron Paul would give us that transparency, letting us know exactly what our senators and representatives are up to. That's why they don't want him up there. The Democrats don't want him up there because he will expose them. And the Republicans don't want him up there because he would expose them. This is why they would prefer Obama, the first choice, or Mitt Romney. They will continue to go along with the shenanigans of both parties. This is why we need ground wars, to rebuild our infrastructure, to get a solid foundation that is constitutionally aligned, that is constitutionally committed to serving the people of America and stopping America from engaging in this warmongering, this interfering in other countries, this destruction of our global economies to avoid this new world order. And, I don't do a whole lot into the conspiracy theories, but that's where we're having, if you just use a little common sense, cause major economies globally to go bad, what do you end up with? One global economy, which will be the idea that somebody would push forth. So, that's where we are. Many people say, well, you can't do it, but it won't be because I didn't try.
Well, TMOT, there's going to be very little argument for the majority of listeners when I say that throughout modern history, anyway, the world has looked to the United States as the proverbial beacon on the hill, that shining light on the hill, if you will, and sort of followed America's lead, as you know, from the time of the Industrial Revolution all the way. I can say probably up until the 80s, maybe even 90s per se. But it seems as though in recent history that a lot of the world is becoming very fed up with America, and they're not willing to follow America's lead anymore. Case in point, when you had America intervening in Libya and going into these different countries and whether they call it a no-fly zone or boots on the ground or an all-out war. You've got the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, and a lot of countries who would normally, support the United States and form a coalition with the United States. Case in point, again, Desert Storm in the 90s, in 1990 and 91. There was a huge support mechanism, if you will, from all over the world. People committed their troops, countries committed their troops, men and women went to fight. And it seems that now more and more people are starting to question America's objectives, what its motives, and what it is trying to do. And in the information age that we're living in with the internet and the, as you said, the global economies, but the global information age now, and it's just with Twitter and Facebook and all of these other social media networks, it's just a matter of time, seconds in many cases, before a news story breaks out, before the so-called mainstream picks it up. So my question to you is, ground wars, is it just going to be focusing on American politics and the American political system, or will you give sort of insight to others who maybe, aren't in America? They can't vote in American elections. They can't, perhaps contribute to an election campaign in America because they're not American citizens. Will ground wars be addressing what people from other countries can be doing to help in this cause to restore liberty, to restore freedom, and to prevent, the collapse of the global system as we know it?
The way I look at that, and the answer to the question is yes, but let me explain why. I remember somebody once said, I am so influential, when I sneeze, everyone catches a cold. America, the ideology that it once focused on, that of liberty, freedom, the pursuit, the happiness, that was something that was attractive. The American dream was something people used to talk about. I want the American dream. We had people coming from other countries to get educated here in America, to come and take part in that American dream. But as we have moved more towards a socialist country in terms of, hey, folk, we'll provide everything for you. You don't have to do it for yourself. People have become lazy, and that American dream has become somewhat of a myth or an illusion for many people, unless, of course, you happen to be filthy rich or an entertainer or a basketball player. And so what is happening now, people can't see it. But initially, when it was there, when the dream was something that could be made a reality and everybody wanted to come to America, it caught on all over the world, and other places wanted to be like America. If they couldn't be like America, they wanted to come to America. Well, because of all the things that are happening in America now, people are seeing the issues, how America meddles, how America is taking away freedoms of its own citizenry. People are waking up. So what we need to do, what ground wars can do, ground wars can put America back to where it used to be, where people can see the power rests with the people. If the people will stand up and take hold of the power that the Constitution gave us. See, the power wasn't given to the politicians or the president. It was given to we, the people, a God inalienable right. And we have abdicated that responsibility and put it in the hands of a few. Okay, so if other people can see how we organize here, it'll catch on across the world like it used to. when other countries wanted to be free. Tiananmen Square, those people were protesting because of the freedoms that they know we enjoy here in America. Okay, even though they quashed it, the fact that they tried speaks volumes for folk when they want something different. And the information age, the internet, makes it possible for folk all over the world to see what we will be doing here with ground wars. The only issue is whether or not governments are going to start restricting access to the internet. Because when an idea catches hold, you can't unring that bell. And that's what countries like Iran and China fear most, the information age. But we have got to take advantage of the information age here because we have allowed mainstream media to spoon feed us our information. So if you really want news about anything, best place to go is on the internet. And I know there's a lot of garbage out there, but you got to know how to do your research. You don't just go to one place to find the information. You find the information in as many places as you can, and you see what is the common denominator. That's how you find the truth.
And you've got to, and you bring up a really important point. You've got to be able to find the information for yourself. I think there was a time when you could trust the media, when the media would report a story, whether it be your news broadcasters or just things that you see in media in general, things that are happening, current events. There used to be a time when you could trust what the media was saying, and now more and more it's becoming obvious that the media is I hesitate to use the word controlled because, as you alluded to earlier, it kind of gives off the tinfoil hat vibe and conspiracy theories and so on and so forth. And so without trying to necessarily paint this position in that light, it is obvious. And if you begin to look and do a little bit of research, it doesn't take long before you start connecting the dots and following the chain of ownership, if you will, understanding that the companies that own the mainstream media networks are the same companies that own the wares that the mainstream media is pushing out there to you. So they own the products, they own the services, they run the corporations that So from watching the news to watching the reality program to the advertisement, it's all being, and I say programmed because that's exactly what it is. It's all being programmed by the same corporations or the corporate persons, that run the mainstream. So saying that to say, certainly you've got to find the information for yourself. Gone are the days when you could just take something at its face value or take somebody at its word, and you've got to look for yourself. And the added bonus to that, I suppose, is when you begin to look for yourself, it's almost as if you've gone down this scavenger hunt, and one clue leads to the next and to the next and to the next, and before you know it, you experience this awakening, is what it's known as, the proverbial awakening, when you start to realize that not everything is as it seems. We could talk on and on and on, TMOT, about this wonderful thing that you're doing called Ground Wars. I know you've got a lot of things going on and you're a busy man. But before we go, tell us a little bit more specifically about when, where, how, and how can we find Ground Wars? When is it going to be on? Where can we watch it? And have you got any guests lined up for your first show? And, tell us about that first show.
Our first show is a guy by the name of Kurt Haskell out of Detroit, and we will be interviewing him. He was submitted to me as a guy who is liberty-minded and a Democrat, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken. But our first show with him will be on Monday. They will air every Monday live. You will be able to watch them on live stream. You will be able to go to FBN .tv, of course, and check them. And we will be putting up promo videos that will list more detailed information about how to call in. It will also be on Blog Talk Radio, so people will be able to call in, ask questions. They'll be able to watch a live video stream, and of course the archive footage will be available for people to watch in perpetuity. And I'm looking forward to it. The goal is to line up guests all over the country.
Excellent. It sounds good. So you say Monday, is that July the 2nd?
July the 2nd, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. This will be Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
All right. Excellent. It sounds really good. So will you come back and talk to us again after your first show and kind of give us a recap and let us know how the show went and, and tell us more about it? It would be good if we could get you on, I don't know, maybe weekly or something like that so that you could kind of give us an update to what to expect on each Monday night. It sounds like it's going to be something really exciting, something worth participating in.
I most certainly would. And I'd like to add just two other things before I go. My experience with FBN, they're dedicated to the truth. They remind me of the media in the 60s. And let me tell you why I say that. The media of today is not like the media of the 60s and beyond, which was dedicated to truth. Had it not been for that honest type media of the 60s, which FBN represents today, slavery would not have ended. I'm sorry, not slavery, but the oppressions that the Negro was experiencing, the American Negro was experiencing in the 60s would not have come to an end. Jim Crow would still be alive today. It wasn't until the media was bold enough to start showing on national TV and in the papers our policemen turning water hoses and dogs on women and children, the lynchings and hangings that had been taken. When they started exposing this dark side of America to the light of day, it brought it to its knees, and Americans woke up and realized that we needed a cleansing. But now our corporations have gotten into bed with the media of today. And as you said earlier, they basically own them lock, stock, and barrel. They report what they want them to report. Phil Donahue, in an interview, stated that when he started speaking out against the wars, his own network canned him for it because they said, we need somebody that's war-friendly reporting. And Phil Donahue got canned. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I applaud you, FBN, for having the cojones to stand up and tell the truth.
Well, we appreciate you, TMOT, and we're not the only ones. Folks like you, folks like FBN, and others all over the world are doing exactly what you're saying. We're exposing the power corrupt, the power elite for what they really are. We're shedding the light on some of these issues. And I want you to stay on the line, TMOT. I want to talk to you offline. But it's a perfect segue into our next musical piece. This is a group of brothers, I believe, one out of Florida, the other out of California. They go by Sleepy Eye Music, and they've got a new album out called The Truth Serum Experiment, and they're a hip-hop group out of Florida and California, and they're doing some really fantastic things in their music. And FBN is all about music with a message and getting the message out there. So this is a debut release from the Sleepy Eye Music Truth Experiment album, and the two tracks are called The Light of the World and Resist Sleep. So keep it locked in, keep it tuned in to Freedom Broadcasting Network and Freedom Radio, and keep it tuned in on FBN.TV on July the 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central for the Ground Wars with TMOT and Jam Smith.
My latest thoughts would be not to follow policy. With all this inequality, the sneaky system invented to demolish me. Imprison the men and women, even little kids of